Hi, everybody. I'm Mayor Lauren McLean. Thanks so much for joining us for this month's listening session that is yet again on Zoom. But I appreciate those of you that sent in questions in advance and that are joining us this evening. I just have a couple things I wanted to say to kick us off, and then I'll talk a little bit about logistics. First off, I hope you're all staying healthy, doing well, whether it be with school and your kids have gotten back to school in the hybrid model, college students that are doing both, and getting back to work as well. I know that so many of us, so many of you have made sacrifices this year. It's been a long year, and I want to acknowledge that and say that I appreciate that, and I'm thinking of each of you in these tough times. There is an election in 2 weeks. I know all of you are aware of that. In fact, after this, tonight is the last presidential debate. If you are able to watch the debate, it'll be on later this evening. But I wanted to talk about the election because there are a couple things that I want to make sure everyone knows. Right outside of City Hall, there is a ballot box where you can drop your absentee ballot if you got a ballot in the mail, but you don't want to put it back in the mail after you voted. You can also turn it in at early vote locations, and you can early vote now and next week. So I guess it's closed today, but tomorrow and then all of next week, we have early vote locations at the Basque Center downtown, and then at the traditional one at Ada County. You can show up, register to vote if you've lived here or lived somewhere within this community for 30 days. You can register to vote and vote at the same time. And then, of course, on election day, polls will be open. Please Google Ada County, Idaho elections, and from there you'll be able to get full information on where polling locations will be, the hours of those locations, as well as details about hours for early vote, and then what you need to register to vote if you need to register. And for those of you that are new residents to Boise that are voting here for the first time, welcome, and thanks for registering. It is incredibly important that we all exercise our right to vote, because it's that civic engagement, that basic piece that makes us and our country what it is. And the elections aren't just the national elections that we hear so much about, but they're all the way down the ticket, all the way down to our roads and highway districts. There are quite a few local races on the ballot, and it's those races and the votes that you cast in those races that have day-to-day impact on our lives. So thank you for getting out there, and please do. And also, I should say that we are doing everything we can to make sure that everyone feels safe as they head out to vote. So if you have any concerns, please reach out to the mayor's office. And then I want to talk about logistics now before we start the questions. First off, as always, we have Lavana and Sierra here with us to sign this evening. So I think if you're probably seeing just me and Lavana right now, my screen looks a little bit different, but thank you for coming back and joining us, as always you do. And so they'll be with us. Seth will be moderating the questions. Seth is my communications director, so he'll jump in next. And we're going to start with some questions that Seth has that have been submitted ahead of time, but Seth, I'm going to ask you for them because I don't have them. And then after that, we'll go to YouTube for questions. And we're aiming for at max an hour. If there's a lull in things, I've got a ton of stuff going on this evening still, so might jump off. But if there are people on YouTube asking questions, we will head through for the hour before I head back to my office. And with that, Seth, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you, man. And quickly, I just want to reiterate what you just said. We're trying to get to as many questions as possible, but due to time constraints today, we're just going to get to as many as we can, and then kind of get everyone back to their lives. And there's a link to the online form in the YouTube chat that you're looking at. That'll be a way for you to get us the questions. I'll try to get them to the mayor as quickly as possible. Please include your name and the area of town that you're in. It's great to know where you're coming from, and it's really nice to be able to address you by your name. I'll be turning my camera off as the mayor's answering the questions. It makes it easier for the sign language folks. Thank you all for joining us. I mean, this is a great way to participate outside of the elections. This is a good way to be a good citizen in your everyday life. So first off, the first question comes from Vicki in Barber Valley. She asked, can you tell me why the airport has designated the upper level of the airport for Lyft and Uber drop-offs instead of the lower level located by the baggage claim? This is not very convenient. Someone wanting to ride share is basically, she's wondering, like, why is the Uber and the Lyft on the top floor?
Oh, sure. And first off, I also meant to say thanks, Vicki, for your question. I'm casual today, and please excuse me for that, even my ponytail, because I just spent the afternoon volunteering at the food bank, sorting pears and putting them in bags with Mayor Simison and his chief of staff from the city of Meridian, and then came back for this. So, but I meant to say that. Vicki, we did just recently start a pickup drop-off location for Uber, Lyft, and other rideshare where we didn't have that before. And we looked at how we could most efficiently move people in and out without interrupting traffic. And we wanted to have it be simple so that there's always one place that you know you're going to end up. And the people at the airport, Rebecca Hupp, our director, worked really hard to come up with this agreement with Lyft and Uber and for future rideshare partners, because it was important to have clarity on fees and then clear signage to know where you head to both arrive and then of course where you're going to head with your suitcases after. And we picked the top because most of the time there is a little bit more room up there. And also, like, when I think about, I would imagine when I think about traveling, I'm much more in a hurry to get to the check-in or to security. And so it's just a quick dart there. And on the way back out, many airports have you walking so much further, and we're blessed with a tiny airport. So that one escalator ride back up after you get your bags. And we thought that really in the scheme of things, while it's not perfect, from a congestion perspective, it's going to work much better. And the experience over time for our customers and our residents, most importantly, will be much better for it. So I'm really proud that the airport was able to work this out after years of not having a spot. It was important that we have this. And now there's rules about where the drivers wait while they're waiting for you, as well as clear signage for people coming and going. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Mayor. This next question comes from Carl. He's in Northeast Boise. He's asking, the North Junior High field has become frequently used as an off-leash dog park, especially on Sunday mornings. There are signs all over the fences and the entrances that say no dogs allowed. However, these are also signs that say, please clean up after your dog. The city has created several extremely nice dog parks. Students have PE and youth sports leagues to play on that field, and not everyone cleans up after their dogs. How can this be better enforced to maintain a clean field for school use?
Sure. Thanks, Carl, for that question. I live near there and see the dogs at North often. This is a school district policy, and it's not a city dog park, nor is it a city park. I live right next to another school in the area. And I can tell you, when my kids were at North also, they're the old signs that say no dogs, and then the schools have put new signs up saying, please clean after your dogs. And we stick dog bags out actually by the schoolyard that we live next to for those that have their dogs. Because at least from my perspective, the schools recognize that they're open spaces in the neighborhoods and welcome residents' dogs if they're willing to clean up. If you've got concerns beyond that, I really recommend that you reach out to the North Junior High Administration and have a chat with them.
Thank you, Mary. The next question comes from Angie. She's from the Northeast End as well. Driving around downtown last weekend, she noticed many bars open and full of maskless patrons. With our school kids with our schools still partially closed, why is Boise prioritizing bars and businesses over their kids' education?
Well, first off, Angie, I want to ensure you we're not prioritizing bars over kids. The health district agreed that bars could open at a certain level of spread. And I think at that point they classified it as yellow and allowed with special agreements bars to open downtown. I share your concerns about making sure that our kids are in school and also share concerns about making sure that our businesses can stay open, operate in appropriate and healthy ways during these COVID times, and that others can get back to work too. I think the last thing we want to do is couple bars to schools, but we need to look at the health indicators. And right now, as the school district this week decided, even though we've moved to red, to continue with their hybrid version of school. So like my son just went to class for the first time yesterday this year. So we continue to take into account the health district's decisions on healthy levels and what should be opened and closed based on the health district's prognosis, and then our local orders reflect that now. As we started to reopen in the spring, it was important to us that we look to the experts to make the health calls and that we follow suit. And I agree with you. I'd like to see more people in masks. We've asked that people wear masks if they aren't going to be 6 feet apart. But I also recognize we need some more education out there because many people think you don't have to wear a mask outside. And so we're actually working with the health district now on future protocols, guidelines, and enforcement of some of the orders that they have in place around their decisions to open bars.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you watching on YouTube, now would be a good time to get your questions in. We're starting to get through. We've got a couple more from our online forum, but now would be a good time to get them in if you want to ask them. This next one comes from Jeremy and is also about masks. What is your threshold for reconsidering forcing, these are his words, city employees to interact with the public? We have higher infection rates than we have had during the entire pandemic, and yet you keep celebrating things like the library being open.
Sure, Jeremy, thanks for the question. We will be looking to the health professionals to tell us whether or not we should remain open. And everything that we've received from the health district has pointed to the appropriateness of opening, and also through that demonstrating the best ways to run a business responsibly. We at the city and as employees of the city are here to serve our residents. Our revenues, our tax dollars, there are services we provide in exchange for that. And we were closed for quite a long time and truly appreciate, the creative programming that came out of so many of our city departments, including the library. And now we know that we will be working and living through this pandemic for months to come. And so we're looking at ways and we're trying to balance the good planning, best intentions, and the rules that we have for people to come into city buildings to demonstrate the ways that we can do what we are supposed to do, that what city employees, myself included, are paid to do, which is serve the public. And I've celebrated the library because so many people are happy to know that they can browse again. And with the reservation system we have for browsing, I want people to know that that's available. Just like the Parks Department, since the early summer days, was looking for new creative ways to provide services through the Parks and Recreation Department, and I celebrated them in the summer. I really appreciate what the library has done recently.
It's really been wonderful seeing all the wonderful innovative things that the library's been doing. I'd echo that for sure. Again, I'm going to say, get your questions in. This is the last one we have from the forum. So if you don't get your questions in the next little bit, I'm going to cut the mayor loose because I know she's got a really busy schedule. So get them in there if you've got questions. This last one didn't have a name attached to it, and they were just curious, what's being done about climate change?
Oh, great question. So first off, I should say, I think it's yesterday I thought was going to be the last nice day, but then suddenly this day became nice. Oh, hi, Sierra, welcome. Suddenly this day became nice. So it might just be that everybody wants to be off their screens and out enjoying Boise before winter comes. On climate change, we have been doing quite a bit of work around climate change and importantly, a transition to clean energy. And we're doing that connected to our belief that through innovation and a transition to clean energy, we will grow an economy, but also by addressing climate change, we'll be protecting our residents' pocketbooks as well as their health in the long run. So we think about it in terms of pocketbooks, health, and long-term prosperity all combined. So one of the early things that we did was create a climate action division because I want to make sure that everything that we're doing around open space, food, clean water, clean air, clean energy is tied together and engaged throughout all of our departments. And then very importantly, tied to my office and our economic development team, because of the belief I have that through innovating in these spaces, we're going to grow opportunity for our kids and grandkids. So of course, the city was, as a city council person, I advanced 100% clean energy goal by 2035. I announced in my State of the City that our team here is working on a municipal government carbon neutral goal of 2035, and they're at work to see if that's possible. And then we'll take our learnings from that and help other partners in the community do the same. Through our Climate Action Division, we are looking at how we electrify our fleet, the roles that building has in this community, so how we better build as a city government to save our residents, citizens, taxpayers, whatever you like to be called, money on a monthly basis. And then, of course, as we transition to clean energy to meet those goals that we established, we're going to partner with researchers, universities, entrepreneurs to come up with innovative ways to meet those goals, and at the same time create opportunities for community power, clean solar energy throughout the city. So more to come. There's been quite a bit done this year so far, but really excited to continue the conversation with our city council and the community around goals and how we build an economy from it.
Thank you, Mayor. We just got a question in from David from the Central Bench. It's a topic we've been talking about quite a bit lately. It's 5G. What's the city doing about 5G? And he's implying that your attorneys might be misleading you.
Oh, David, I think we've talked. We are doing, this is what the city can do right now. We have been told by the federal government that we can only make decisions based on our zoning ordinances. And we're looking to the court to decide the case in the 9th District to then give us direction as to whether we can look at other indicators. I appreciate the concern that many of you have, and then the support that many people in this community have for 5G as well. So right now we're looking at this. I understand that you disagree with our attorneys, but my job is to make sure that I protect the city and our residents, both financially and from a health perspective. And the last thing I'm going to do is take action where we know that we would be at legal risk. And so our city attorney and her department are working with others in this community to determine the best step forward. And right now, that is that our staff are looking at this in a strict planning and zoning perspective.
Thank you, Mayor. And we just got another quick one. They want to know what you're doing about housing prices.
Housing prices? Is that what you said?
Housing prices, yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks. So we are all experiencing the impact of rising housing costs in our community. And it was loud and clear to me as a council person and a candidate, and now as mayor, that a lot of my focus must be on addressing affordable housing in our community. There's no silver bullet, and it's not something that government can do by itself. But we are looking at doing everything that we can as soon as possible. And I say that because there are things that we can do on our own. There are things that we can incent to create partnerships with those who actually build the homes. And then there are programs that we can develop and zones and ordinances that we can change to ensure that we have more. So I want to talk about this from I think of it as the portfolio approach, the different things that we as a city are doing. First off, we have goals for the number of houses that we really need to build every year that are affordable. And when I say affordable, it doesn't just mean super low income, the 30% of AMI, but affordable housing, separate from the federal definition for me, is that we have housing that's affordable to all of our residents. And we have the goals of the number of units that we need to see that were plotted years ago, and the city's not making them. So we're asking the question, if it didn't work, what we were doing, what do we need to do differently to reach the goals that we have that we know our residents need? So we have been very actively setting aside land, acquiring land for a housing land bank. And a good example of what that is and does is what you might have seen announced around the corner of Franklin and Orchard near Franklin Park, where the school used to be. That was a piece of land the city owned. It's in the land bank, and we put it out for a request for proposals, from developers, with different things that we were looking for. And then developers that wanted to build can rent the land from us, and then we selected the best presentation, the best package. A committee did, and we liked how that worked. That was our test. So we built it. or we built the proposal, we looked at what we got, we learned from it, and now we're doing that again. And so we've set aside land, and we'll continue to along transit corridors into a housing land bank that we will be able to offer builders of homes in exchange for their commitment to create homes at certain price points for a certain amount of time, as well as mixed use and other things. Excuse me, I gotta take a sip. We also have a housing bonus ordinance that very soon will be out for public comment. And as someone that's interested in affordable housing, I think you'll be interested in taking a look, and I'd love to hear your feedback. We're talking with builders of homes, residents, others, because we want to make sure that this housing bonus ordinance that will point to what we as a city would negotiate over, whether it be parking or density or height along transit corridors at appropriate places in exchange for certain numbers of those units being built to be at affordable prices. And so we want to make sure that we get that ordinance right. And so we'll put it out for comment, because if we're going to provide incentives or say we're willing to negotiate on things, we want to make sure that it's actually going to bring people to the table that can provide what our community needs, which is housing that's affordable. We also have the zoning rewrite committee and the zoning rewrite in general that was proposed and developed a year or so ago. We redid that committee and announced it several months ago, and a citizens committee has convened once to start talking about what that looks like. And their charge, along with our planning team and the stakeholder interviews they do throughout the city, is to look at our zoning code and determine how it needs to change to reflect a 21st century city and our need for housing within the city. It'll be a multi-year process, and really appreciate the citizens that have volunteered the time. There'll be many, many hours over the next year or two with no compensation for them, but the compensation is, feeling good about being involved in the community, and I really, really appreciate that. They will look at all sorts of things, and then create many opportunities for the public to engage. And while that's happening, we're going to have to take a look throughout the city at what needs to change in the meantime to make sure that we can get the housing that we need in Boise. And then there's also an incentive program that we're developing. The policy was created by council several years ago, and staff is finalizing that. So together, these are just some of the examples of steps we've taken this year or progress we've made this year to address housing. And I want to point out, though, how important it is that we recognize that it's on us to do what we can as urgently as we can to address the community's need, but we need to do it right so that we have the partners that are necessary to create the housing at the affordability points that we need for our residents so that everybody can have a home.
Thank you so much, Mayor. That's all the topics that we have for today. So I'm gonna let you get to your water, because it sounds like
my throat is so sore. I was sorting all these pears, and I think there might have been a little dust on them because my throat got itchy while I was sorting pears. And this doesn't normally happen in a listening session, definitely not in the first 20 minutes. So thank you. I probably looked really silly on film. I want to say thanks to everybody that submitted questions in advance. Thanks, Lavana and Sierra, for joining us as always. To my team that helped, especially Seth tonight, facilitate the questions, and to each of you that tuned in to watch. It takes engaged citizens in our community to make this place what she is. It's who we are, and I really appreciate the opportunity to hear what's on your mind and answer questions that come from those thoughts. So take care, everybody.